Good morning, it's Mark Winter here from In Technology Distribution. I am here today, we're here today to talk about social distancing and contact tracing. I appreciate you all attending the session this morning, and I hope that you gain a lot out of it, and you've got some, and you can bring some questions and some good dialogue to the live stream this morning. I have with me, I have Chris and I have Veronica from Intelligent RFID Solutions. One of our partners who we're working with in relation to contact tracing and social distancing technology, and we'll allow them to do a bit of an introduction to themselves earlier on. But let me start by saying good morning, you guys.
Hi, Mark.
Well, excellent. Morning. So we'll kick into this. We've got a bunch of people on. We'll talk a little bit about that, but we'll get onto the presentation or onto the live stream. And then, as I said, we'll do a further introduction to Veronica and Chris in a minute. So let me just basically do a very quick introduction. This is hopefully going to run for about an hour. We do have questions that we're happy to answer. We've got some pre-canned or some pre-questions that have already been asked to us that we actually have already answered that we will go through. But as we go through, please feel free to enter into the comments box. Depending upon which platform you're using, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, you can add your comments to the chat box and we will actually see them and then we'll answer those live as we go. So I've already done the thank you for joining, which is great. Let me give you a bit of an understanding as to who's here and I guess, to give you an idea as to the interest in this sort of technology. We have over 100 attendees registered for the session. We've got 16 different countries that are represented. We have 39 industry segments, and within those organizations that are registered, we've got companies that have got 25 staff, and we have companies that have got 45,000 staff. So as you can see, there's a wide variety of organizations that have interest in this type of technology. So we're going to try and target this morning's live stream really to everybody. So we're going to be relatively generic. If you have any detailed or more information that you'd like, as I said, pop it in the chat window, and Veronica and Chris or myself can answer it, or alternatively, we'll give you some contact details where you can contact us afterwards. So a little bit of an introduction to who I am. My name's Mark Winter. I'm the CEO of In Technology Distribution. We are a distribution company based here in Australia with offices in Southeast Asia as well. Our focus really is to bring leading edge technology into the markets across the Asia Pacific region. And really for us, we're about keeping organizations safe and secure. So we do a lot of work in relation to real-time location tracking. That's is the portfolio where this contact tracing and social distancing technology fits in. We do a bunch of stuff around cybersecurity and also in the wireless technology space as well. Our engineers spend quite a bit of time in vetting vendors and understanding the technologies that are around, so that we can make sure that we are actually bringing to the market what is the number one technology within that market space. Now, what we tend to find we do is we talk to customers about what their requirements are, and then we fit the technology that we represent based around their requirement or their outcome. We're not about just flogging a product for the sake of selling a product. That's not where we come from. We've been doing this for 23 years, so we've been here a long time. As you can see, when I first started, I had hair in this picture, in the picture that you can see on the screen. It now no longer exists. So, as I said, we've been doing this for a long time, and we're really here to understand what you're looking for. And then if we have technology that we can represent, or that we represent, that we can bring to you that will help you in getting that outcome, fantastic. And obviously we're working with partners like Chris and Veronica to actually bring the technology to the market as well. So in relation to that, let's move on to an introduction regarding Veronica and Chris, and I'll pass over to Veronica and Chris to sort of tell you more about themselves.
Thanks very much, Mark. I'm so excited to be here this morning, and it's been a wonderful project to work on leading up to today's webinar. My name's Veronica Steinecke. I'm the CEO and Managing Director of Intelligent RFID. I'm really passionate about technology. I'm passionate about providing best-in-class solution to customers. And I think today in the COVID world that we live in, this technology and this ability to be able to protect your business is probably the most important thing that we're looking at today, to help protect businesses and keep businesses moving. So I'm hoping that today will be a lot of food for thought, and we're really proud to be delivering a very comprehensive technology solution that can certainly be best in class for your organisation and help protect your staff and your business going forward. I'll hand over to Chris.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Stewart-Andrews. So I'm the Chief Technical Officer of Intelligent RFID Solutions. My background is all around engineering, particularly electrical engineering, electronics, and RFID solutions sort of in and around industry. So I sort of echo Veronica's comments and thoughts around this contact tracing technology really being something that's so important and so topical around bringing employees safely back into the office post-COVID, and as New South Wales and Victoria in particular start to open up over the next week or two.
Thanks, Chris. And Intelligent RFID really is a company that's all about, bringing best-in-class solutions into your workplace. There's a lot of products that we actually sell from all around the world, and this particular product and this solution here is definitely something that I certainly see as the umbrella product that will sit nicely over any organisation to protect them from disruption, minimise risk, and get businesses back to normal. So thank you for that, Mark.
Pleasure. And it's great to have you both on. And obviously, as we're going through this live stream, the whole concept behind this really, it's to really give information, but make it an interactive session as well. So as I mentioned before, any questions, regardless as to whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, feel free to add your questions, and we'll answer them as we go through the presentation, I guess. So I'm going to pass back to Chris and to Veronica, because we really want to talk about to do or not to do. And I guess that's the question that we're sort of looking at today. So I'm going to pass back to Chris and Veronica to run through this.
Thanks, Mark. So I suppose that is the question that companies are facing today. To do or not to do, that is the question. Do companies actually invest in technology that can look at protecting their business, certainly from a COVID incursion? As we know, social distancing and contact tracing in the workplace certainly does give greater control over the impact of a COVID outbreak. So I suppose some of the questions to think about before we actually go into the actual technology and the reasons why the technology is so important is to really identify very quickly, what does this technology actually do? So with contact tracing, if you introduce that into your organisation, as you know, it would immediately enable you to identify your close contacts, to segregate and isolate those employees and staff and visitors, for example, in your workplace. It will allow you to immediately enable to identify any impacted work area or any common use asset within your workplace. Contact tracing reminds staff at all times to maintain a safe distance from each other. So obviously with social distancing, the technology will provide alerts and beeps so that when people do come closely together, they will be reminded that they're well within that 1.5 metres, and that will allow them to move away. It reduces the impact of delayed advisory for the authorities. So you'll be able to get onto that data very quickly and then provide that data to the health department, who then will do some things with it, and certainly help to reclassify tier 1s and tier 2s. So incursions and lockdowns in your business doesn't actually happen. Reduces potential facility, obviously forced shutdowns, reduces unnecessary isolation of staff who are actually not affected, and keeps you ahead of any public relations issues. And we've seen a lot of those, unfortunately, over the last 18 months, with businesses having to close and staff having to be, stood down. Obviously, it demonstrates, most importantly, to your staff, to your contractors, that you have their well-being front and centre, and you have a safe workplace. It reduces exposure to work cover claims and lawsuits, and it's very much an inexpensive solution that carries obviously significant benefits to reduce interruption to your workplace. So I think they are ultimately the main points to think about in regards to contact tracing and how it can benefit your business.
Yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And it's interesting when you mention and you talk about it provides, having this sort of technology provides, I guess, a surety to the organization's staff that they're being protected, or the company's doing everything they possibly can to protect you as an employee, when you're going into the workplace. And that's a really interesting point. And I think something that we tend to overlook a little bit. We're not just looking at this as far as, we're protecting the organization. It's also a really good thing to be protecting your staff. And I think when you're talking to your staff about deploying this type of technology, that's really got to be a position that you sort of take on that. And we mentioned before, Veronica, about the ability to actually prevent your organization, or if your organization does have to shut down or has to shut down a certain area, the ability to actually go back to the powers that be that may have locked you down to start with, to,
I think we might have just lost you there, Mark, but I think what you were alluding to was actually being able to give that data straight away to the Department of Health and Human Services, for example, from a tier 1 perspective, identifying distance and time. It certainly will be able to help them reclassify the business from a tier 1 to a tier 2.
Can you hear me still?
We can
now.
Oh, good.
You're back.
I've just frozen.
That's all right. I finished the question. I sort of answered the question where I think you were leading to in regards to the Department of Human Health and Services here, for example, with the data. Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. My apologies for that. Technology works really well when it works really well. All right, so let's get into it. Appreciate your input on that, and we'll come back for some more questions and so forth as we move forward. So I guess what we want to do is look at why social distancing and contact tracing, and why is it so important. It's not just us talking about this; it's the media, it's the government, and we're going to hear a few videos that are going to sort of talk about this, just to give a bit more depth to our presentation.
Come to an end, with the Prime Minister pushing the premiers to relax restrictions to get employees back in the office. How it will happen will be discussed by the nation's leaders tomorrow, as New South Wales recorded just one new infection.
The Prime Minister believes there's no longer a reason for people to be working from home. Hand sanitizer, empty desks and space between staff.
Oh, sorry. Let me just get going on that.
All part of the guidelines National Cabinet will look at tomorrow to allow businesses to order employees back to the office.
It's very important. We're working very hard to make sure that we restart Australia.
So the government is working very hard to get us to restart Australia, which is really, really good. There's a little bit more on this that we're just going to go through in a second. Let me just get through to it. So what is the government saying? So we've got another quick little video here that I wanted to run through, just to give you an idea on what our leaders are saying.
But we now need to get 1 million Australians back to work. That is the curve that we need to address. So to get Australians back to work, what is absolutely essential is that they can go back into a COVID-safe workplace. And this is something the Minister for Industrial Relations, the Attorney General and the COVID Commission, together with the unions and others, have been working on for some time. And already businesses are acting on this. It's not just about being able to go back into a workplace that is safe, but it is also about being able to do that confidently. And it's also about being able to go into a workplace where there are outbreaks. And let's not forget that when we move and start to ease some of these restrictions, of course you will see numbers increase in some areas. You will see outbreaks occur in other places. That's to be expected. What matters is how you deal with it and how you respond to it. And it's important that businesses, employees, employers have the tools to deal with the COVID environment and to ensure that they are all working together to support a COVID-safe workplace.
And that's really one of the things that we're here to talk about. And the government is talking about a national COVID-safe workplace. and they actually do have some principles. And I thought what I would do is just show you, there is a website, Safe Work Australia you can go to that actually has information about how to bring your workers back into the organisation in a safe manner. So I'd encourage you, or we would encourage you, to go and have a look at this website. It's got some really, really good information on it. They do talk about different principles and the different principles we need to look at to be able to bring our workers back. Now, I mentioned before on the call, we have a lot of people from overseas as well in this session, a lot of people from Asia. In different countries, your governments will have very, very similar type of things. So what I would do is I would look for, or I would do a search for, COVID safe workplace principles for your country, and you'll actually find those, within each individual country. There's also some workers' rights. So, the government has now also set up the ability to have a health and safety representative within the organisation. So the other thing to keep an eye on, you may have, depending upon the size of your organisation, if you're a large organisation, one of the things that you'll start seeing that the organisation, not the organisations, I've just lost the word, it'll come to me in a second. What you'll find is there'll be requirement to actually have a health and safety representative. It's the unions, that's the word I was looking for. So unions will start to push to have that health and safety representative implemented within a larger organisation. So just be aware of that as well. All right, so let's get into what is social distancing. I'm going to try and make this really, really simple if I can. And I thought I'd do that by, again, another quick video by somebody who we should all know by now because he's been on the television a bunch of times recently. But I'll just play this quick video and then we'll talk more about what the technology is.
So what's social distancing? Firstly, we should probably call it physical distancing. We don't want people to socially isolate. We don't want people to be socially separated from others, but we do want that physical distance between people. That means your arm span, 1.5 to 2 metres away from other people.
But unless you're 2 metres tall, it can be hard to know what that looks like without a measuring tape. It's about 3 steps. So, 1, 2, 3. Enough space so that you can put a bed between you, or 2 shopping trolleys, or any of these people. Or if you were holding a broom, you shouldn't be able to touch anyone with it. That's all fine in theory, but how does that look in the real world? In an office, you need to be about 4 desk chairs apart. And if you're still not sure whether you're keeping enough distance, then add a bit more, or see if you can hit them with a broom.
The reason why is because other people might be unwell, they might have minimal or virtually no symptoms, but still transmit coronavirus. So if you can keep that distance from other people, you're protecting yourself. And if you have minimal symptoms, you're protecting other people from being infected. If everyone can do that, we can change the course of this epidemic.
And that's really what we're trying to do, right? Is we've got the vaccines coming in, and those people who have chosen to have that, fantastic, congratulations. And those that have chosen not to, that's a freedom of choice. But we can still put in principles and processes in place within our organisation to actually protect our staff, which is critically important. So let's look at what is contact tracing. So we know what social distancing is. Now let's have a look at what contact tracing is.
To try and stop the virus in its tracks, many places around the world have implemented physical distancing. But another tool that could fight the spread is contact tracing. So what is contact tracing? How effective is it? And how do we implement it? This probably isn't going to blow anyone's mind, but contact tracing is literally tracing all the people who have been in contact with
Mark, we've just lost the volume, I think. Can everyone hear us? I think we might have lost Mark.
Yeah, I think Mark seems to have dropped off for some reason, maybe a small technical problem.
Apologies for this, everyone. We're hoping we've just shot Mark a text message just to let him know that we seem to have lost him. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully we'll get reconnected.
I think he's having some internet problems. He's going to rejoin us in a second. I think that the point that the video was obviously getting across is what is contact tracing and how is it useful in the workplace. And I mean, ultimately, as I think we've all heard in the media, contact tracing is really, that ability to identify people who may have been exposed to something like COVID. And I mean, ultimately, it's a means of looking forward and looking back in time to A, prevent transmission, but B, also to trace who might have been affected and who may have been exposed to something like COVID and potentially becomes positive in the future, given that something like COVID takes 3 or 4 days before someone becomes infectious and perhaps even starts to show any symptoms. And obviously, there's reports in the media around people having tested positive COVID and ultimately not showing any signs or symptoms of having COVID itself. So obviously it becomes a real challenge to contact trace. But contact tracing is that sort of ability to look forward and look back. Obviously looking forward is all about trying to segregate people who may have been exposed and put them into isolation or into quarantine. And looking back is obviously something that we can do with technology. And I mean, that ultimately is where we sort of sit with some of these contact tracing solutions, particularly with the ability to have wearable devices talking to each other and communicating wirelessly to allow time and distance, which ultimately contact tracing comes down to be recorded in an online sort of way to allow us to look backwards in time to see who's been close and who's been with a COVID positive person for a period of time. And obviously different health departments around the world have classified close contacts in different sorts of ways. The US in particular have been quite explicit, I guess, in terms of what constitutes close contact with time and distance. Australia is another example have been fairly generic in terms of saying that close contact is somebody within the same room. But obviously, as we, learn to live with COVID, we those guidelines get revised and get changed as a means of trying to live sort of more normally with COVID.
My apologies for that. My machine decided to freeze itself, and it doesn't matter how often you reboot and start before you do these. Sometimes it does happen. So my apologies for that, but I am back. So as long as you can all still hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mark. So we just we're up to that, it sort of dropped out halfway through the contact tracing video, but I think we've sort of touched on what is contact tracing and how is it, effective in a sort of a workplace solution.
Perfect.
As a means of, reverse contact tracing in the past, and then obviously, segregation and quarantining of those who may have been exposed to stop future transmission events.
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for picking up on that. I guess the thing is we've got to look at, from our internal perspective, really what's the cost of us not doing anything. And we actually put together some numbers because we've seen within, as an example, a lot of people on the call will know, would have heard of the facility in Melbourne that was closed down. And I'm just going to play this really quickly.
The processing facility remains closed for cleaning after a new COVID-19 cluster was revealed. 8 staff members of the Melbourne-based business have tested positive. Victoria's opposition questioning why the name of the facility is being kept under wraps. The state government warns progress against the pandemic remains incredibly fragile. It's standing firm on keeping shutdown measures in place.
And so it's really important as we're moving forward in relation to how do we protect and really what is the cost to our businesses, and really it's millions of dollars. And let me give you an example as to what it looks like. So this was an abattoir example, right? This isn't necessarily saying that this is the specific case that we heard on the news story just a minute ago, but we're using this just as a general example. So if you have an annual salary for your employees, and you can see on the right-hand side there we've got from $45,000 to $75,000. We've looked at what is the daily salary for those. What does it cost you as a business to shut down? Obviously, if you're having to shut down for a period of time, you can't necessarily tell everybody to go on a week's leave. You've still got to continue to pay those people. If you look at the wages from just a 300-person organization, for them to have shut down for 1 week, you can see the costs there where it says wages alone, potentially anywhere between $250,000 and $500,000 worth, depending upon the average salary of your staff member. Now, that's just referring, or that is referring to the cost of the employee, or what the cost is to pay your employees. That's not calculating any additional cost over and above, from the loss of income that you may have incurred by having to shut down your whole facility. So part of the contact tracing in the social digital, mainly the contact tracing piece, is all about, if a worker comes in and actually does have COVID, or it might not be COVID, it might be another or the next version of it. You can basically identify who are the people that person came in close contact with, and then close down that area of the facility, and not having to close down the whole facility. That's really where contact tracing comes in. We're going to talk a little bit more about the technology behind that as well. So we'll do a quick introduction to social distancing and the social distancing technology that we jointly represent. And we know basically how social distancing works. Let's talk about the technology behind it. So the technology we're talking about is ultra-wideband. In the past, we have looked at different technologies to look at. We've looked at Wi-Fi, we've looked at Bluetooth Low Energy, and we've really, I guess, beated ourselves on the ultra-wideband technology, mainly because of the accuracy that we can get in a tag-to-tag type communication. So we saw before in the video that when you're coming in within 6 feet of each other, the tags will basically beep. They'll let you know that you are too close to move away, and that's fundamentally how the technology works as a standalone solution from a social distancing perspective. And if we look at what are the components for social distancing, so there's really, as I mentioned before, so you've got the tags that we can see here. We've got the chargers, which is the bay chargers where they charge from, and then obviously the infrastructure that isn't required. There's no additional infrastructure required when you're looking at a social distancing application. So really, it's just the tags and the chargers. People come together. The tags will communicate with each other and then tell them to actually separate. So that's as easy or as hard as social distancing is. Veronica and Chris, what have you seen in the market? Like, what are you seeing your customers are looking for when it comes to a social distancing application? Can you jump in and give us some feedback on that as well?
So I think that the customers are really looking at obviously the social distancing side, particularly if they're in a small type office environment. If they're in a factory and people have to work closely together, they're looking more at a contact tracing, so rather than the alerts and the beeps. But I think some companies are obviously looking at the dual aspect of the social distancing and the contact tracing from that point of view. Chris, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, that sort of entry level, very easily implemented sort of solution that allows employees to wear a tag, and it highlights to them and also to the employer that everyone's doing the right thing according to the public health guidelines. So, I mean, I think at its base level, it's a very easily implemented solution that's relevant to any workplace. But as you say, the next level that I think a lot of businesses are looking at is in addition to reminding people to keep socially distant, where can they take it from the perspective of contact tracing, and how can they use data to help drive this solution further?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess that's the next stage, right? We'll start talking a little bit now about the contact tracing piece, and really let's do a bit of an introduction to the contact tracing solution. So again, we're using the same technology. The difference is with same ultra wideband technology, same type of scenario. When two people come together, we can notify them by beeping. The other thing that we start doing at that point is that we actually start monitoring and tracking that those two people have been together. So we log that information, and that information is actually stored on the tag. And then once that person goes through a specific area within the facility, it will actually upload that data to the cloud, and then that information is then able to be viewed and read in the online application, and we'll have a look at that in a second. So here's the components, as I mentioned. So we have our tag here that is on the employee. It's working over ultra wideband. When it gets connectivity to the locator or the beacon, which is what you can see here, it will then upload the information, and that information is then seen in the dashboard, and you're able to actually drill down and have a look to see what information or who has been in contact with who is the second level, how long they were in contact with them for, and there's a lot of granularity that you can get in that. So let's talk about why we looked at ultra wideband. Previously we've looked at BLE, as I mentioned, but one of the things that we identified was that we weren't really getting the peer-to-peer tags with the BLE. You weren't really getting the accuracy that you actually needed. So the challenge was you could be within a meter within that from somebody else, and it wouldn't report it. So our decision was to actually move specifically into the ultra wideband space because organizations wanted that level of accuracy. It is a later technology. It is very cost effective, as we mentioned before. The tags themselves can actually hold 1,536 contacts. So you don't have to have the beacons everywhere around your facility. The place you would put them is in the most traversed parts of the facility. And when you've got those the beacons in there, when someone walks past those beacons with a tag on it, will actually upload that data to the cloud, as I mentioned before. The ultra wideband technology can be set up for social distancing and contact tracing, and it can be also set up for real-time location tracking. So if you want to be able to track assets or staff or temperature monitoring or a whole bunch of other application usages that you want to be able to utilize the technology for, you can utilize it for more than just one particular use case, if that makes sense. It is able to be programmed or be able to be tags are able to be programmed over the air, so you don't need to go and bring all the tags back in to to program them or to update them based on your modifications and changes to the system. And the other really good thing is that they're a fast battery recharge, which is really important. The cloud portal, let's have a look at that. So the cloud portal is basically used for tag management and configuration. It's where the workflows and events and reporting is. There are alerts to events in real time. So, if you actually have somebody coming too close for too long a period of time, you can set up a notification to basically update or to send a notification to the admin, where the admin can say, hey guys, you've got to separate. I mentioned before over the air tag management, the contact is anonymous. So you don't necessarily have to have Mark and Chris and Veronica. Each of the tags themselves have their own unique identity. So they have their own unique MAC address or item number. And what we actually do is we then marry the MAC address to, as an example, a staff ID number. So we're when it comes to security of this technology, we're not passing, Mark has been in contact with Chris or with Veronica, we're passing, this tag has been. So we're not actually passing any data that is actually, that potentially might create any security issues or concerns for your organization. The other thing also that it does, and we can go back 14 days, we can go back 40 days, we can go back 4 years. So the data that's actually recorded in the system is actually held there for eternity or for as long as you need it there for. So the great thing about that is that it gives you the ability, if you want to go back and look at your historical information, you can do that and you have the ability to. So we're going to go through some questions that we've already received. And I would encourage you, as I mentioned before, please, feel free to add questions to the chat window of whichever platform you're viewing this, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, and we will answer those questions as we go. So let's go through some of these, and I might actually bring the team back in, and we can sort of go through and have a bit of a general discussion around some of these questions that we've actually got. So we're looking at the difference between social distancing and contact tracing. So Chris or Veronica, do you want to take that? I mean, obviously we've got it written there, but let's get a verbal version as well.
Yeah, I can answer it. So I mean, social distancing, I think we sort of mentioned, is really the entry level for these tags, in terms of it doesn't require any real infrastructure other than the tags themselves and the ability to charge them. And I mean, realistically, it's just that reminder in a visual and audible sense to employees coming back to the office that to sort of help, I guess, drive and maintain the public health orders, whereas contact tracing is potentially social distancing combined with the ability to monitor and then report on close contact events, which includes then time and distance. And I mean, as you already alluded to, all of this data can be stored on the tag and uploaded automatically to the cloud platform, sort of as people move around the office or leave work for the day. So, I mean, I think the advantage of this technology is its ability to work outside of the traditional office setting. It doesn't require fixed infrastructure. That the tags themselves are all completely autonomous from the perspective of, even working outside on a building site. And as an example, this solution can still be used as a means of either, reminding for social distancing purposes and potentially recording for contact tracing purposes as well. Don't know whether we lost your mark again. Would you want to take this one, Veronica?
Maybe. So yes, absolutely. The tags can be purchased and use alerts and social distancing only. So if you are looking at just simply putting in the basic option 1, which is alerting staff of their distance, no infrastructure is needed, as Mark has said before. So it's just a matter of purchasing the tags. Contact tracing requires the use of the software platform, and of course that then will monitor trends and evaluate the effectiveness of any of your policies and workflows. One of the customers that we are talking to at the moment has staff that work outside. As Chris mentioned previously, they work outside all day, and then every evening they come back into the office, or even some days a week they don't head back into the office, but as soon as they walk through the office doors and the gateways are in the building, then all of that data that's been sitting on the tag is uploaded into the gateway, and the business has all of the contact tracing history made available instantly as soon as they come back into the office. So it is nice technology that can be used both inside and outside of your work site and your workplaces. And I think also the variation in the type of tags. So as you saw in the first one of the slides before, there is a tag there that just looks like a normal access tag that you wear around your neck or on the belt clip, and you can also wear in that particular badge tag pouch your MyFair card or your RFID access card for your building. Those two technologies don't clash, so you can actually have both of those badges together and still access the building without having to wear an asset tag and also contact tracing tag as well as your access card.
I think Mark's still having a few technical issues. So I did ask him to switch to the next slide, so which is obviously, or the next question, which is this one.
How does the tag communicate with the cloud platform? Would you like to take that one, Chris?
Yeah, so the tags will just obviously store data in a contact tracing sense, completely, well, within their own internal tag memory, and then when it comes into range with one of the beacons, it will then communicate through your existing Wi-Fi network. Oh, sorry, not Wi-Fi, your existing wired network. So the beacons themselves are powered over the network, and they essentially a plug-and-play device, which then gets passed through your network or through the business network up to the cloud platform for later reporting or real-time alerting.
So the next question is around about, well, what is ultra-wideband gateway? So it really is a small device that plugs into any power outlet that allows to communicate with your network via an Ethernet cable.
And now also potentially powered over the internet, over through the network as well via power over Ethernet enabled internet port or Ethernet port. So is the location of the tag tracked? So in a contact social distancing or contact tracing perspective, no, the position of the tag isn't tracked. The same technology can be used to track these tags in real time, but it involves essentially the placement of a lot more beacons around the building to, in essence, triangulate the position of the tag within the building, and then yes, you can locate the position of these tags. But in a social distancing or contact tracing perspective, the tags themselves don't require any continuous connectivity to these beacons, and they only know, I guess, the who and the where of who you've come in contact with, as opposed to the position or the but it's certainly possible with the technology. I think Mark's still got some connectivity. So how do we know if a tag is within 2 meters of another tag? I mean, the technology, as it says there, the technology is not only sending information, but it's also listening for signals from other tags that might be in the vicinity, and obviously it works on a time of flight technology and looking at things like signal strength to work out distance. And I guess one of the advantages of ultra wideband in its ability to localize tags and to measure accurately distance between tags is its ability to use this time of flight technology. And once a tag gets within a certain distance, then the alerts are then sort of enabled, and whether that's an LED alert or on the tag itself, an audible alert, or from a contact tracing perspective, the ability to record the ID of the other tag that's come within that sort of predefined range.
Chris, how does it work on multiple floors in buildings that have got multiple floors?
I mean, it can still work. Obviously, I don't know, it's perhaps a question for Mark, but thank you back. But Veronica was just asking about the use case in a multi-floor environment. I mean, obviously, the tags transmit in a sort of a radius around them, while the signal's reduced as it goes through between floors, it's still possible. It can go, between floors, through walls, etc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you wanted to add anything around multi-floor configurations from a contact tracing, social distancing perspective, Mark.
You think you're on mute. There you go. Can't quite hear you, Mark, so we might just go to the next question.
So does the position of the tag on your body affect accuracy? So, I mean, obviously, with radio frequency signals, I know I've lost the slide. With radio frequency signals, there's some attenuation of the signal as it goes through our bodies, which are sort of 60% water. So it does have some effectiveness. So, I mean, I guess most effectively that the tags are worn on the outside of our clothing, either via a lanyard or placed in a pocket or on a belt clip or something like that. So there is some effect, but it's not sort of overly significant in terms of the ability to still measure tag to tag distance accuracy.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about API integrations? I think we've lost Mark again, so I don't have any questions that I can see, but I'm just wondering.
No, I don't either.
Is there...
No, so I mean, the system itself has the ability to integrate with third-party systems via an API. So that include not so much for social distancing perspective because it's all completely autonomous and doesn't require the software, but from a contact tracing perspective, there are abilities to integrate this data into existing systems or into third-party systems, and then obviously the API itself is still applicable from the part we haven't really talked about in any real detail, which is this real-time location and the ability to locate tags. But the API sort of still has the ability to feed that information into external systems if it's necessary. I think what we're seeing a lot with contact tracing is that it's that sort of system that's sitting there working, recording data, and it's almost like the insurance policy that's there for people to use in the event that there's an exposure to COVID or to something, and then they go into the system and report. But by all means, that the data is still very, very much usable for other purposes, over and above obviously the topical one of COVID.
Thank you. So how is the solution priced? So for the social distancing, as I said before, it's very inexpensive. It's a matter of buying tags and enough tags to cover the fleet of staff and or contractors. So it really is very inexpensive, and there's no infrastructure required. For contact tracing, of course, you would need to purchase the tags and any UWB gateways. The gateways cover from 50 to 250 square meters. So again, great coverage. And depending on the setup of the organisation, you might only have one entrance, one exit. So you may only need one gateway. You might have a couple of exits and entrances in a warehouse, manufacturing, factory situation. So you might need a couple. So again, with contact tracing, it's tags, the gateways, and then the cloud platform. And then with RTLS, which is obviously measuring real-time location. So that's the tags, multiple gateways, because obviously you're now needing to track people within the entire organisation, whether it be a hospital, a manufacturing plant. So you need more gateways, and then again, the cloud platform. So the great thing about this particular solution is you can come in really at an entry level and take it right up to the RTLS. So it really comes down to the size and, of course, the budget that you're working with. But the other wonderful thing about the particular technology is it's modular, so you can add to it at any time. And you can start with a proof of concept. We've done that with a couple of our customers. So we can do that initially, see how that goes within the organisation, and then from there you can expand. Now, I think we've got Mark back again. So
I think so. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
My apologies. The great thing about technology is that sometimes it doesn't work. So I do apologize for that. I've had to actually bring out another PC to actually get myself going. I'm still on this one up here as well, but you did a really good job. I was able to listen the whole time.
That's okay.
And I apologise for throwing you in that deep end. So I think we've got a couple more questions that we might just go through. Let's just have a look and see. Oh no, that was it. So we've got some live questions too. So we have a question here that is actually asking, can you actually deploy both, or first the social distancing and then the contact tracing? The answer to that is absolutely. That's not an issue, and we do see some organisations deciding to go down that path, or look at doing that type of deployment. Majority of the time, what you'll find is, in a very short period of time, you realise, or you see the value, or you have the requirement to actually add the contact tracing piece to it. But look, absolutely, you can most definitely do that from an initial perspective. What other questions do we have here? Let me have a look. How long does the deployment take? It's very, very quick. So basically, the scenario is that, if you're, you obviously pricing is, and you would get from Chris and Veronica, we would look at and I guess the other thing that I'll answer with that question is, how does it get deployed? So you obviously have the tags. This is my tag here. I won't show you the front of it because it's my ID badge as well. But it is my tag that I use on a day-to-day basis. The simplicity in relation to deploying it, literally you get the tags, you implement the beacons in the most traversed locations, as we mentioned before, and literally hand out the tags to your staff. And, the cloud configuration gets done pretty much straight away. So it's very, very simple and very fast to deploy. You can deploy between 2,000 and 10,000 devices over the course of 3 or 4 days. That's not an issue at all. Another question was, is there ongoing services required for the product? There's not actually ongoing services. In other words, the product is, if you've got engineering resources, or if you've got technical resources that can actually implement the locators, then the beacons or the locators, then obviously we can just ship you the tags and you can be up and running straight away, as I mentioned before. There is obviously an ongoing cost when it comes to the software or the cloud platform, but it's not a lot of money when you consider what it can actually save you as an organization. And I don't have any other questions. Is there anything else that Chris or Veronica, you wanted to add to today's session?
I think, I just wanted to, first of all, say thank you to everybody for attending. I think, we're living in a world that's ever changing. I think the technology is really exciting. And I think as we're opening up, COVID is really going to be, it is everywhere. We know that. And I think if this is a mechanism to help businesses, survive and stay open and cover OH&S needs and reduces costs for insurances and just, disgruntled staff, or not being able to get your staff back. I think we just live in a world now that we can just throw a lot more at it. And I think this technology will certainly go a long way to help protect businesses and obviously the staff within the business. And it's a really exciting future for businesses for now and into the future. So, just really happy that we've been able to have this opportunity to talk about it and explore what really is possible. Chris?
No, I think just to echo your comments, I mean, it's been a really good opportunity to sort of explain some new technology, or at least technology that's been out there, but a new use case for it. And I think, one thing as people, or as New South Wales in particular at the moment starts to open up again, and obviously Victoria will follow fairly shortly, and business is going to need to, I guess, learn to live with COVID. It's one of the things that is becoming quite clear is that despite encouraging everyone to get, the leaders of governments in sort of trying to encourage everyone back to the office, it is still going to be the responsibility of the employer to maintain a safe workplace. And I think that's really where this technology comes in, is in trying to avoid COVID outbreaks or outbreaks of anything. But even though everyone's been sort of encouraged to come back to the office, it still is the business owner and the business director's responsibility to keep workers safe. That part's still as clear as it's always been from a work safe perspective.
Yeah,
Absolutely, and look, we see this daily, and it's interesting as we're trying to open up, and as organisations are trying to come back into the fold and get people back to work in a safe way. This is definitely the way that they can actually do that and ensure that their staff are safe and ensure that they're compliant. And I think the other thing also, and it was mentioned earlier on, what else is really cool is, and we sort of did mention it, but I'm going to say it again because I think this is really important. If you have a mandate, or if you have to, from a government perspective, if you have to close down your business because you actually have a COVID case within your enterprise or within your organization, this type of technology potentially will help you in actually getting to open sooner. If you can identify those people within your organization that were in contact with somebody who had COVID, the government's going to look very favorably upon you, and potentially allow you to actually get back to business sooner. Or alternatively, allow the other employees in the organisation to continue to work whilst isolating the ones that had come in contact with that COVID patient.
And I just want to pick up on what you said there, Mark, because we've actually been speaking with the Department of Health and Human Services here in Victoria about the technology and how they would look at the technology. And they actually said, gosh, this would just save us so much time and effort. So, they really back technology such as this. And I think that's a fantastic commendation from the Department of Health and Human Services, who really are swamped with contact tracing. And if we can do anything to help our communities, our businesses to stay open and to, back to normal and back to business, then why not? And as we said before, it is an inexpensive and very cost-effective solution for businesses and organisations.
Well, listen, thank you both so much for for being involved in today's session. We really appreciate it. Obviously, there's next steps, and you can see on this slide, get in contact with the guys from Intelligent RFID. If you've got any additional questions, the information, if you wanted to get some pricing, the information that they're going to need to know is obviously who you are. What are you looking for? You're looking for social distancing or contact tracing, the number of employees, and the time frame you're looking at getting back to work. So that's really the overview from us. Look, thank you very much for everybody who's been on the session. I do apologise for my technical challenges I had. I was bragging earlier on before we started the session that this is a great platform. I've used it about a dozen times, rock solid. And of course, what happens? I freeze twice, have to reboot a machine, and now I'm working on multiple. So, look, thank you for sticking by us and staying out to the end. This is obviously being recorded. This will be up live online straight after the session finishes. So, if you did want to share this with somebody else, feel free to do so. And again, thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate it, and stay safe. And all the best. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks Mark.
Everyone.
Enjoy your day, everyone, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.